Welcome to The Trouble with Football, the show where football's irritations get the spotlight they deserve. Each episode, I sit down with a fellow fan or podcaster who has a bone to pick about the powers that be and our beautiful game. Big or small, serious or stupid, no topic is off limits. And this week, my volunteer to vent is Alex Miller. Now, Alex is a long-suffering and quite frustrated at times West Ham fan and season ticket holder, and is known to the wider audiences by his TikTok and other social media channels, as well as YouTube. You can find him on all platforms under the name of West Ham Fan 86. Alex, welcome to The Trouble with Football. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I think, first of all, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your beloved West Ham and
Okay.
your journey with them. Could you tell me a little bit about how you became a West Ham fan? Is it born and bred? Is it through the family? Or what were the reasons for you becoming a West Ham fan?
Well, I mean, it is through the family, not traditionally like through my mum and dad, though, because my mum and dad are actually Tottenham fans, because they were raised in North London. I was raised more East London. At the age of 7, my cousin, who was a West Ham fan, had a spare ticket, and he said, "Do you want to come?" I was round there visiting. He said, "Oh, do you want to come to West Ham?" I was like, yeah, all right. He got permission to take me, and I went to West Ham, 7 years old, Upton Park. Went to see West Ham versus Oldham Athletic. We won the game 2-0, and I was hooked. I was hooked from that game. I loved every single minute of it. I fell in love with football. I fell in love with West Ham, and despite my dad's efforts to turn me to Tottenham, it just wouldn't stick, and I've been a West Ham United fan ever since. And it's a frustrating club. I always remember about a month after I said I'm not going to support anyone but West Ham, my dad took me into his work and introduced me to a fellow West Ham fan, and he's gone to this bloke. I actually think his name was Neil, and he said, Neil, can you just explain to my son what it's like to be a West Ham fan?" And he said, "Well, the West Ham fans are the greatest fans in the world, but prepare yourself for a lifetime of hurt." And he wasn't wrong. Until about 2 years ago, and that was like one of the main reasons. That was my very first video, actually, telling that story on TikTok, because it was the day before the Conference League final. And that line was the thing that had been going through my head at whole season. The season before, when we were in Europe, I just want to see us win that trophy.
Yeah.
And so, it just meant so much. And I love West Ham. It can be hell sometimes. It can be frustrating at times. This season has just been one thing after another. We're starting to get a little bit of hope now. Is it going to continue? I don't know.
Let me ask you a bit about sort of your history with West Ham a little bit then, before we get on to the big European trophy that you won. So first few games when you were going, how old were you when you first went, did you say?
The first ever game I went to, I was 7 years old.
Wow, okay.
1993. It was
Right.
West Ham's very first season in the Premier League. And I still remember that. I remember little bits growing up, because I wasn't going a huge amount to Upton Park when I was that age. When I got into my teens, I started going a little bit more. I'd go to the odd game here and there, but just remember the times of Harry Redknapp and players like Paolo Di Canio, the youth coming through. I remember listening on the radio in my room, listening on the radio in the car, wherever I could, just to try and hear, checking the scores on teletext and things like that. It's very, very different times. I don't know how I survived back then, because now I get frustrated if I can't watch, half a game of football on the telly. I need to find somewhere to watch it, so I don't know how I survived back then.
Let me ask you about, because one of the biggest things that's happened in West Ham's recent history is changing from Upton Park, a fortress in some respects, very old stadium but very traditional, a classic English football stadium, to where they are now in the Olympic Stadium, or the London Stadium as it's called now. What were your memories of Upton Park, and what has that change been like for you?
Well, I mean, Upton Park is where I fell in love with West Ham. just I remember because it was a traditional 3 o'clock kickoff when we went, and it was crowded and it was smelly. But I remember being up in the stands and just hearing the whole crowd singing Bubbles and the whole atmosphere. And that's the place where I fell in love with West Ham. So I just had such a connection with it. I used to love the walk going down to Upton Park as well. We used to go to Upton Park Station. You'd walk down the street, past all the burger vans, the fish market. You had all the smells, and it it was just an experience that I just absolutely loved. And when it came about that we were going to move to the London Stadium, I was so torn because on the one side, I knew that financially that would be a real opportunity for West Ham to start progressing and maybe take a step up and actually really start challenging for silverware on a regular
Yeah.
basis. Like, it could give us that opportunity, and I still do believe that it can. It's a whole other issue of why it hasn't. But yeah, I was very torn. But I didn't want us to leave Upton Park. I believed a lot of the stuff that was coming out at the time, saying that we couldn't expand Upton Park, we couldn't do anything with it. This was only the real option to be able to expand. And yeah, I kind of bought into it, and yeah, I didn't want to leave, but I thought it would be for the best for West Ham. And that last ever game at Upton Park was just one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Just everything before the game being delayed, just because there was just fans everywhere, hundreds of thousands of fans everywhere. Just the way it played out as well, like a near last minute winner to beat Manchester United. It's just absolutely incredible. And yeah, they really do miss that place because it was just so special. And moving to the London Stadium, it's just never really felt like home since. We've had some great games there. We've had some great experiences there. The whole European fun, the European nights there were amazing, especially our quarterfinal second leg against Seville.
Yeah.
And that comeback, that was one of the best nights of football that I've ever witnessed, experience wise and atmosphere wise as well. So you can create an atmosphere there, but it's just not the same. And I feel like the whole progress of moving there has been just so poorly mismanaged, and it's just not worked out at the moment. As I still believe that it's possible that it will, and I think one day it will, but I think we're quite a way off from it actually working out. But there are things you can do there, but at the moment we just don't have the rights to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think one of the things that you can't deny that financially it made sense to do it. I think everyone would understand that, and you're right. One of the things that a lot of fans talk about, whether they be home or away fans, is the atmosphere and the fact that you're so far away from the pitch. And obviously, in comparison to Upton Park, it's obviously completely different in that sense. But the distance away, how do you find the atmosphere at the stadium?
More recently, over the last few years, I've been going to a lot more away games,
Right.
and that's given me a little bit more perspective on the home atmosphere at the London Stadium. I find that if you go to any stadium and if the home team is not performing, the atmosphere can be quite poor in a lot of stadiums. It can. But suddenly, if the home team is putting in a good performance, they're winning, then suddenly the atmosphere can erupt. And it's very similar at the London Stadium. Very similar.
Yeah.
The reason why a lot of teams come to the London Stadium and think the atmosphere is crap because most teams come there and beat us. So we're not really in the mood. If you go to any home stadium, the home fans are not going to be overly, enthusiastic to get behind the team.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Okay.
But we, as I say, we can create a good atmosphere there. Like the game against Seville on the European nights, we did create some really good atmospheres. In a smaller stadium, it's naturally going to sound louder if you've got the same amount singing compared to somewhere like the London Stadium, which is not really ideal for creating an atmosphere.
No.
It doesn't mean you can't, because we have done it.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair thing. Can I quickly just ask you about your social media, because I came across you actually on TikTok, and I was watching quite a lot of your videos on TikTok. And for those that don't know you in that sense, you've got lots of thousands of people that follow you. In particular on TikTok, I think you're one of those people that a lot of people follow, and you talk specifically mainly about West Ham, and it seems like a daily blog almost in the sense of what's happened next with West Ham, and things. And it's really interesting to watch. What made you do it? What made you get on there and just start talking about things?
Well, it was something I was thinking about for quite some time, especially during our European runs. Like
Yeah.
in the Europa League, I was tempted, but I just never really had that confidence to do it. I was watching so many other people. But then it came to the night before the Conference League final, and I thought, you know what? I want to catalogue this.
Yeah.
I want something to be able to look back on, that I catalogue my experience of it, because if we win it, this may be the only trophy I ever see West Ham United win. So I want a record of it. And I thought, you know what? Let's put it on TikTok. So I made a quick video talking about how I become a West Ham fan and how much it's meant to me. And then I did a vlog for the night, and I did some other little bits and bobs. And, the videos did okay. And I thought, you know what? We won it. And so I thought I'll just keep on documenting, because I thought, this is something I've always wanted to do. This is an opportunity now. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was. The responses that I was getting weren't, you're always very fearful when you go on social media that people are not going to like you. They're going to say horrible things. And you have that in the back of your mind.
Absolutely, yeah.
But when I was getting so much support, I just thought I would continue. And it was just one thing led to another. And then it just becomes something that I was doing every day, just talking about West Ham. And as we always say, there's never a quiet day with West Ham.
Listen, thank you very much for joining me today. And I know that time is ticking on and it's time that we get to business. I'm going to hand over for you for a minute. I want you to tell me what you think the trouble with football is, Alex.
Well, I think that the trouble with football is diving, simulation, and play acting. All of that, it frustrates me so much. When you see someone just they dive over a player's leg to try and win a penalty, and it gets even more frustrated when they're not punished for it. That's something that really irritates me as well, especially now we've got VAR. Like, a referee will give a penalty, they'll look at VAR, they see that he's dived, and then they just move on. They don't go and book him. You're like, well, it's not a penalty, so it's a dive. Go and book him, for God's sake. They get away with it so much. I feel like it needs to be punished a lot more, because then people won't do it. But then it's the same thing, like play acting, where a player holds his face like he's been smacked in the face, but he hasn't. And yes, now we have the video review. You can clearly see that they haven't. Punish them for it, because it's cheating. It's cheating. It frustrates me. And it frustrates me when our own players do it. We've got Paquetá. Well, we did have Paquetá. Paquetá's leaving now. But he used to do that all the time. And it used to, as much as it used to annoy opposition fans, there was no one more annoyed about it than us West Ham. That it really used to irritate us when he used to do that, because it's just so unnecessary.
And look, it's a really good subject. It's a really good topic, and it's something that I think a lot, if not all, football fans can get behind, because I don't think there's any football fans that really enjoy watching anyone dive, or should I call it simulation, which is now the
that's what they call it these days. Simulation.
I was looking it up and I was trying to find the exact rules, right? Because it was 2017 is when the actual ruling came about, I believe, on simulation, the concept of diving and doing something about it. It's when they had a big push on it at one point. And let me read this out to you. I love this. Right, this is the IFAB rule for simulation. Okay, here we go. Simulation is when a player fakes or exaggerates an action with the aim of deceiving the referee into awarding their team a free kick or penalty kick, or in punishing an opponent by showing them a yellow or red card. And now these are the things that you've just mentioned, right? It says a player can be guilty of simulation in a number of ways, including pretending to have been fouled to get a free kick or penalty, or pretending to have been kicked or punched so that an opponent gets booked. Exaggerating is another option. So exaggerating the seriousness of a foul, the strength or the effect of a kick or push, or the last one, which is my favourite, which is holding the wrong part of the body after an incident. For example, holding the knee when the foul was on the ankle, or holding the face after being pushed in the chest. And the best bit about all of this, which should have worked but it didn't, is if a player is guilty of simulation, the referee awards an immediate indirect free kick and the player is shown a yellow card. Discuss, Alex.
I did not know about the indirect free kick bit, but I
Yeah.
did know about the yellow card. But you don't see that enough, and you definitely don't ever see indirect free kicks.
No.
It becomes so much more commonplace though. I think it started with, you don't want to stereotype the Brazilians, but they were the ones that were most famously known for it. But since we've had more players come over from South America and Europe, and you have been seeing it a lot more in the Premier League. But don't get me wrong, the English players are just as guilty of it.
I was going to say I'll get to it in a minute. There was a bit of a survey done, but actually one of the responses in the survey when they looked through the data was to show that English players are now just as bad. We've definitely caught on to the excitement.
Yeah, and he's just cheating, and it's just not punished enough. And there's part of me kind of thinks we see all these replays on social media. We see them all the time, and everyone can look at them and go, "That is blatantly a dive." And there's a part of me that say, just go and punish them. If you look after the fact, say, right, okay, well, you've got a 1-match ban for that. I mean, that was just pure cheating. If a player makes a really bad challenge, or they do something off the ball that the referee or VAR don't pick up, and then he gets seen after the match, they will go and give that player a ban after the fact because of what's happened. So I don't know why they can't do that sometimes.
Well, Alex, now this is a really good point that you just raised, right? Because I was thinking exactly the same thing about that. And I looked into it. And do you know there actually is a board, like there is a panel that look for, goals and who scored a goal and things like that. There actually is a panel for retrospective action on diving. Do you ever hear about it? Do you ever hear anybody getting booked after the fact or suspended for diving? But there is one.
It makes me think that some of those times they say, well, yeah, he did dive, but maybe that tiny little touch, like maybe he trips over that blade of grass there, and it may seem a little bit harsh.
The concept that, there was contact, as they say. There was contact. So, he was pushed over, but it just wasn't a foul. And it's like, no, sometimes there isn't even contact and you're not booking players for it.
So, I mean, sometimes I think it's really difficult to tell when there is contact. How much contact does it require to take a player down sometimes, especially when a player is moving at speed. When a player is moving at speed, only a little bit of contact is required sometimes to take them down. Sometimes you can see that the touch was only little and the 17 rolls that they did after was not necessary whatsoever. But, sometimes I can get that sometimes where that there's been a little bit of a touch. But when there's clearly no touch, when you see players deliberately diving over a leg, or sometimes where they leave a leg hanging just to get tripped, that really irritates me as well. I think West Ham we had a game, not last season, the season before against Newcastle. And we were 3-1 up until like the 80th minute or something. And Calvin Phillips came onto the pitch, and they got a penalty in this game because Calvin Phillips had got the ball inside the area. He went to go kick the ball. Anthony Gordon put his foot in front of Calvin Phillips as he went to kick the ball. So then Calvin Phillips kicked his leg instead of the ball, and then Newcastle got a penalty. He had no intention to go for the ball. He was literally putting his leg there so he would get kicked. And then VAR gave it. And I thought, that's cheating as well.
So when you think of, at this moment in time, doesn't have to be literally this season, but in recent football times, can you think of players in particular that have frustrated you in watching? You've mentioned your own player in Paquetá. Any others that you sort of think to yourself, do you know what? Every time I see this one.
I mean, there isn't a name that particularly jumps to mind, but I think every player has them, don't they? I mean, I've seen, if you go through it, I look at Arsenal and I've seen players like Saka and Trossard and Martinelli, like they're all guilty of it. Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins, I've seen him do it like a couple of times. And I mean, you go through, there is just so many players that do it now. There's no one that really just kind of stands out as that does it most.
No.
I think Sterling used to do it quite a bit, actually.
Yes, yeah, and even our illustrious England captain Harry Kane does it. I mean, it's now a tactical thing as well, isn't it? And I think that goes back to your point about if the referees were stronger on it and had a stronger opinion on what was a dive and what wasn't, and gave more cards, it would take it out of the game a little bit. And I think it's a struggle though, because I think we all think to ourselves that it's the other team that do it, or the other players, or it's like you said earlier, like a lot of it started when foreign players came into the leagues and things, which I can understand the concept of it. I was going to share with you this this data, right? So, who was it? So I don't know if you know the guy, but a gentleman by the name of Statman Dave, who is a BBC analyst. He's on the BBC radio quite a lot, and he's a data analyst. And he does a lot of analytics for football. And one of the jobs he got was to look at it's basically like a diving audit, right? So it was to look at who got booked for diving and all that sort of stuff. And they looked at the whole of the Football League for 3 seasons, the last 3 seasons, basically. So 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25. And I say across the whole of the Football League, right? And I'll give you some of the sort of the biggest of like takeaways, some of the points that they raised, right? So, and if you think about it, this makes sense. But actually, when you put numbers beside it, it's quite shocking, right? Almost all instances of diving occurred in the second half. And you think to yourself, okay.
Probably later on in games.
There you go. Well, that's the next one, right? So there was a huge surge during the 90th minute. What a surprise. Right? And 70% of the dives took place in the penalty area. So again, we know what's going on there, right? And I think there was no surprise when it came to positions either on the pitch. So strikers in the Premier League in particular have 26% of all the dives across all 3 seasons, which suggests that lower league maybe not quite happening as much, but in the Premier League it's big business. 75% of dives took place when the player's team was losing. What a surprise.
Trying to get an equaliser or a winning goal, maybe.
Let me.
It makes sense.
And the last
it's such a coincidence, isn't it?
I
These
know.
players go over a lot more.
Who would have thought
it?
But interestingly, of all of it, right, they also gave you the top 8 most dive-prone clubs. In other words, the clubs with the most dives in those 3 seasons, right? Now, listen to these top 8. Some random names in here, okay? So 8th, Barrow. Barrow, right? 7th.
Are they even a league side at the moment?
3 seasons ago they were, right? So 7th was Accrington Stanley. Who are they? 6th, Crawley Town, right?
Crawley Town, right.
5, we get to a Premier League big boy, Newcastle United. And I can see that. 4, Manchester City. We thought we'd get there, right? And then 3...
Surprises me because they're not behind a lot.
No, but I think because of the way that they play, the style they play, they're in close quarters all the time, aren't they? And I think they're prone to be able to get out of a position by falling over, let's say. 4, Manchester City. 3, Burton Albion. Very random, right? Second...
Cheers.
Yeah. Second, I think we can all agree with this one, Chelsea.
They tend to have those kind of players. They like those kind of players. There you go.
Yeah. And then randomly, number 1, right? Most dive-prone club in the last 3 seasons, random, Bristol Rovers.
Bristol Rovers.
So, yeah.
I thought you were going to say Bristol City.
No, Bristol Rovers. So, yeah, very interesting stuff. And the other thing that they mentioned as well was in comparison to male counterparts, female footballers demonstrate much fairer play. Records show that only 1 single instance of booking over the same time of the whole 3 seasons. So, it's more of a male thing than it is a female thing, which I thought was quite interesting as well.
Oh, their game's growing. The bigger it gets, I'm sure I have to do it.
Yeah, it'll come along. Don't worry. It's very interesting. I thought that there were those sort of stats. And as I say, I think the concept of when we think about diving, I think we all have certain players or we all have certain teams, and it always feels like it's an injustice against our own team. And I was wondering, when you think about the injustice, you sort of mentioned it at the beginning, what can referees, what can the authorities do more to stop this? They've got the rule, but it doesn't feel like they're particularly putting it in place enough. Is that what your thoughts
No.
are?
Yeah, I feel like it needs to be something that is dealt with a little bit harsher. I think they need to be a little bit more strict with it. You know, it's because look, we've got this video with referees, we've got VAR now, and we've seen instances before where the video referee does kind of help out the referee on occasions. Like I saw one the other day. It was in a West Ham game. There was a foul made on a West Ham player, and you saw the referee just choking in his ear, just say, "Was it this player or this player that fouled him?" Because there was two players
Right.
around him, and I think the video ref just said, well, "No, it was this player that fouled him. He's the one who did it." So why can't you just sometimes the ref goes, right, he's just dived there. He's just dived. That was a clear dive. Book him. Okay, fine. Book him. He ain't going to do it again. He won't do it again for that game because he ain't going to risk it. And the more times that players get booked, the less it will occur.
Yeah.
It is really simple. And it's the same things with time wasting and play acting. The more you punish it, the stricter you are on it, the less it will happen.
And the knock-on effect as well, like managers will be towing the line more as well, because if their players are being more and more suspended and they've got smaller squads because of players feigning injury or simulation, they'll have to say something as well. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like managers are taking responsibility either.
No, because they can gain an advantage. They gain the advantage from it as much as the players do, don't they? Because if they do win a last-minute penalty, then that could save their job in some cases. Yeah, because it's a very cutthroat world in the manager game, so they're going to look for any advantage that they can possibly get. So no, they're not going to say anything against it. You might have some of those old school managers that might not like it. I think someone like David Moyes doesn't strike me as someone who would want his players to dive, but I think if the occasion calls for it, something he's not going to overly complain if it happens.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, just fans. I find it embarrassing. I just find even when I see West Ham players do it, and I see West Ham players dive, I think Somerville's done it a couple of times. Like you see him go over, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me, it's like, right, if we get a penalty, I've got to go online and try and defend this in a way somehow. I'm kind of hoping that it doesn't get given. If it does and we score, great, because it's happened against us at some point. But I just wish you hadn't have done it. It wasn't necessary to go over like that, and it's a little bit embarrassing.
A really good point, actually, that this coming back to us as fans again, and the impact that diving of our own players has on us as well, because it doesn't feel right, does it? We struggle with watching our own players dive and win free kicks and things. Like, it's great in the moment, but ultimately, when you look at it, it is a struggle to try and support these things that happen.
I find it more difficult with the play acting. Definitely, like with Lucas Paquetá, you just get so frustrated with him, especially when he's going down. The amount of times that he has feigned injury and it actually cost us goals, that's what used to really annoy us. I think we had one in the FA Cup last year against Aston Villa. It was 1-1, and he went down after a corner pretending he'd been hit in the face. Wasn't there defending at all, and then they ended up scoring. Well, if he'd stayed on his feet, maybe he could have been there. There was one against Liverpool. I think it was last season as well. The game was 1-1. We were looking like we were going to get a draw at Anfield, which we never do. He goes down pretending he's been hit. He's not there. They go on, they get a cross in, and they score a winner. But if he'd stayed on his feet and chased back and helped out, then it may not have happened. And they're the things that annoy me. It's like the repercussions of doing it sometimes as well. It's not just that they're doing it, but sometimes you can say, I think it was, what was the game the other day? I think it was Monday night. I think it was a Leeds player who went down. He was holding his face. It was in the Leeds Everton game. Yeah, he was holding his face. He thought he was injured, and then Leeds got the ball. The ball came up to him. As soon as he saw the ball, he jumped up and he grabbed the ball and shot. Yeah. And then he scored the winner.
That's right.
You were fine.
Facundo Buonanotte. Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, Buonanotte. That was it. Yeah,
exactly. Listen, Alex, we're running out of time. I just want to say, This is going to rumble on for a long time, but I agree with you. Diving is an issue. I'm going to add it to my list. So thank you for bringing it to my attention.
No worries.
Thanks for taking part. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you coming along and moaning with me and venting about what the trouble with football really is. So thanks again.
No worries. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
And thank you to all of you for listening. And please remember to like and subscribe, because it really helps the channel. And finally, just remember that in football, it's the annoyances that keeps us talking. See you next time for more chat about the trouble with football.